Hello, good afternoon or good morning, depending on where in the world you are. Today I'm with Krys Pappius, and she has got a really interesting story, and it's all around how to live your best life and stop being a people pleaser and be who you are. So, Krys, let's just dive right in. You've got a really interesting story about a wake up call that you got. So, can you tell us about it?
Yeah, the alarm was pretty loud. So the story starts in 2003. At the time, anyone who knew me thought I had a great life. I had, a good, well-paying job. I had stability. No debt, sort of living the dream. And one night, I was involved in a pretty serious car crash, and I drove onto a bridge that had black ice on it, and I lost control of my vehicle. And it was fairly violent crash, and my car remained in motion for some time. And rather than I was surprised myself that I wasn't afraid of dying. That's not what was on my mind. What was on my mind was the fact that I was feeling a great deal of sadness that when I thought of all the things in life that I had said no to, and that I had never really made a difference. And I vowed to myself that if I survived, I was going to change things. I realized in that moment that I was unfulfilled. My life was actually boring. It just had no meaning. And I was a people pleaser. Everybody else came first, put myself last, and life just wasn't fun. And I wasn't willing to live like that again. So 15 months later, when I was actually physically and mentally fit to sort of re-engage in life, went back to work, stepped into the office, and realized I was stepping right back into the life that I had vowed I was going to leave behind. So now it was time to make good on the promise that I'd made to myself. And at the time, very type A personality, asking for help was a weakness. Had to do it all by myself. So I started, yeah. Anybody out there relate to that? So I started going to all the workshops, the courses, reading all the books, and I found a few golden nuggets here and there, but by and large, I found it all to be fluff. I found that all these resources gave me permission to dream, and not one of them told me how to bring that dream into reality. And when I took a step back and I saw how these random nuggets could fit together in a process that would lead to change, and when I started implementing that process that I could see, that's when things started changing for me. And really, I started taking back control of my life. I was taking it back, and I was going to start living life the way I really wanted to in my heart, a life of purpose, a life where I actually made a difference, where I did what I want, when I want, say no to the rest. And that's not in a narcissistic way, because what I wanted to do was all purpose driven. And no stress. Because once I got clear on what was important to me and what my purpose was, decisions are simple. They're either in alignment with my purpose and they're a hell yes, or they're not in alignment and it's a hell no. So decision making is very simple. So that sort of really is a Reader's Digest version. And I want to emphasize that before this accident, anybody looking at me would say that I was successful. I had the dream, and yet I had nothing.
Well, and I think for a lot of particularly women, but I mean probably men as well, but particularly women, we do a lot of things and make a lot of choices based on what we think we should do or what other people think we should do or what our family needs. And it's really easy to have years go by and think, this wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah, very true. And when I started, I've worked with, just in my career, I've worked with people with difficult circumstances. I get human behavior, which made me actually think I was immune. So it was kind of interesting to find myself in the very position that I could see everybody else in. But the reality is, all these rules that we live by, these are rules that are set down when we're kids, 6 or 7 years old. It's things that people tell us. It's a view of the world that our caregivers, our schools, all these people lay down. And what I realized was, ultimately, I was allowing a 7-year-old to run my life. And the question is, would you let a 7-year-old drive your car? So why are you letting a 7-year-old run your life?
Yeah.
And it's not that the people I was around were bad or were harming me. I mean, there's a lot of other stories about that. We can only teach what we know.
So you had the dramatic wake-up call.
Yeah.
But so what if somebody's got an inkling that my life should be better and they don't want to wait until they have a near-death experience or a dramatic car crash? What can you do to acknowledge maybe this isn't the right path for me? What should we be doing?
For me, the process that I live by and the process that I use with my clients, it's just 3 simple steps. Step number 1, what is your vision? What do you want? And it fascinates me that when I ask clients, what do you want? The answer is, I don't know. And in a way, it makes me feel like I wasn't that weird back then anyway, right? I was just, see, I'm not special. And that's what I want to emphasize is the process is special, but I'm not special. Get a vision that's really a reflection of what is important to you and what is your life purpose. And there's a process for finding all those. Once you have that vision, debunk all the beliefs that tell you why you can't have it. And those beliefs come back down to, I can't, I don't deserve it, I'm not good enough. We've all heard them. I suspect this is ringing bells with people who are listening to this conversation. Once you find your truth, and I believe each one of us has a depth of strength and wisdom that is beyond our wildest imagination. And most of us wait until our backs are against the wall, i.e. car crashes, before we dig deep to find that. So debunk those beliefs. They're not hard to identify. Then look at your life and decide if there was one thing you could change right now that would have the biggest impact on your overall life satisfaction, what would that be? And create a plan to get you to that vision. And it's tiny baby steps. So this is what I want. Reverse engineer into the smallest tiny steps. Often we have this dream and all we can think about is how far we are from the finish line. If you break it down into small steps, you always know what's next. You don't feel overwhelmed. You can see with every step you take how far you've come, and you can celebrate that. And it keeps you going. So those are the 3 steps.
One thing that always kind of held me up for a lot of years was I was kind of always worried that if I pursued my dream, what if I was making a mistake? What if it was the wrong dream? And it took me a while to realize, well, that's okay, because you could have more than one dream in your life. Like you could do something when you're in your 20s, and when you're in your 40s, you could do something, and in your 50s. And is that something you see from, or, like, I'm not just crazy that it was just mine?
No, you're not crazy. You're not special. Like we're it's amazing how similar we are. The reality is that today, based on what I know about myself, this is my dream. As you move forward through the process, you're stepping out of your comfort zone. You're seeing life differently with every new experience. If that dream has to get tweaked, why not? There's no solid, this is your dream. I believe we all have a purpose, and I believe we all have values. And as long as we're going in the right, as long as we respect those, then we can't make a wrong choice. We may simply get new information and make new decisions based on new information, but we're going in the right direction.
And that's kind of freeing to think about that, to think about, okay, what's important to me, and then make decisions based on what I know today and go forward. Like that really is very freeing from, going back to worrying about like getting it right the first time and having the, the right, making the right decision?
I don't, okay, I know there's some wrong decisions for me based on my values. So for example, for me to go and rob a store is the wrong decision. That's not my values, right? I mean, that's clear. But other than that, I think every experience teaches you something new about yourself. And that ultimate vision may change, and it will still reflect what's important to you. As soon as you deviate from that, you know it because you feel it. And so most of the women I work with are 50. So my sweet spot is midlife professional women. The reason I get so excited about this, so pardon my passion, when we get to 50, traditionally, the expectation is, as women especially, is you're now old, exit stage left, you're no longer relevant, you don't have anything to offer, disappear. And the truth is that when we reach the midlife, given our life expectancy, we now have 20 to 30 years of living to do. And there are no milestones in place, right? The last milestone that society kind of ever recognized is retirement. And then, okay, we'll celebrate your 70th and your 80th birthday, but there's no milestones. And what's great about that is you get to set your own. You get to do it your way. Because we women, we're smart, we're industrious, we're dreamers. I know that I will never be a neurosurgeon, right? I mean, that's the reality. I don't have the skills or the interest, but really anything that touches my heart, I can do in some way. If you can dream it, explore it, figure it out. We have incredible freedom in North America, in this part of the world, in the Western world, to do it our way.
Well, one of the things that really sort of inspired me was I was rereading Think and Grow Rich a few years ago, and Napoleon Hill says that most people aren't successful until later in life. And now he goes in and talking about like, because the sex drive is gone, which I don't think that's necessarily true. But there is something to be said about, if you're not like running around trying to meet somebody or get laid, and you're not controlled just by your hormones, plus just life experience. Like I know so much more than I did when I was 20. I didn't know anything when I was 20. I thought I knew everything, but I didn't.
Well, and I think there are also some realities about this midlife, however you want to define it. It's not, 49 or 53. It's a time in life where I believe the natural cycle is you start realizing you're closer to the end than the beginning. And I believe that there is a tendency for people to start looking back and assessing. So for many of us, we reach all those milestones and realize, why don't I feel good? Why isn't this enough? And we start looking back, we start reassessing, but the reality is we face our own mortality. People around us are facing their mortality. I don't know what's happening in your audience, but I suspect a lot of them will be able to relate to grief and loss. Relationships come to an end. Parents end up being empty nesters. There's so many changes that happen at this time that I think often we are pushed to asking questions. Now, many people out there, when they start feeling this dissatisfaction, they kind of have a knee-jerk reaction to go back in life when they were happy. And they perceive their youth as a time of happiness, and they try to recapture their youth. And I don't think many of us are very successful. And I think that is what the midlife, we call it a crisis, but I think it's a midlife opportunity. I don't see it a crisis. I think some people do experience a crisis when they start looking for answers in the wrong places. All right, trying to recapture the youth. That youth is gone. It's not coming back. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to be 21 again. I don't want to be 18 again. When I think back to who I was and what I was and all the rest of it back then, oh my goodness, that's not where I want to be. If you read, the name of the book, of several books escape me, but if you do some research into what gives senior years value, what gives people joy, it all comes back to the same thing: values, purpose, meaning. We start looking at what is really giving our life. Sorry, my cat up here, her fur has gotten into my nose. I apologize.
That's okay. We're all working from home with our pets around.
It appears that this is where our wisdom comes into play. You know, the elders, the wise elder. We are all wise elders. And yes, for most of us, we wait until something happens. We get that wake-up call. Life gets turned upside down. We start asking those questions. And unfortunately, many of us, when the crisis is over and we do land on our feet, we revert back to what is our comfort level and what we know is familiar. We don't have to do that. After my accident, I said, I went back into the office. It was 15 months later. And the moment I walked in, I realized I was walking back into the life that in the moment of crisis, I realized was not working for me. And you have to take action. The only way to get from where you are to where you want to be is to take action.
Okay. So if somebody's been watching this and they're kind of thinking, you know what, this sounds familiar, this speaks to me, I'm at that place, where can they find out more from you, Krys?
There is a download that summarizes, it's a guide through the 3-step process that I use. And there's also an open invitation in the guide to give me a shout. I'm happy to jump onto a call with you. And just, there's no strings attached. There's no expectation of anything. Just to help the callers, your audience members, start getting some clarity on what is working, what's not working, what would they prefer. And I'm happy to jump on a call. Like I said, no strings attached. Give me a shout, get on my calendar, get booked.
All right. Well, I will, as soon as we're done here, I will put this in the chat. So anybody who wants to get the link, we can get that. And thank you so much, Krys. I really liked what you had to say about, you know, really using your vision and your values as a guide, because I think that's, I mean, even just that is going to be really valuable to think about that whenever you're making decisions about where to go next. So thank you for joining us.
It's been a real pleasure.
All right. So make sure you grab the link to Krys's guide, and we will see you again soon.